Hey everybody, Neil Thompson from Teach the Geek here. I work with technical professionals so they present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. And you can learn more about that at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. And as always, remember to like and subscribe to this YouTube channel as every bit helps. I'd like to go over some mistakes I think that technical people make when giving presentations in front of non-technical audiences. The first one is not showing empathy to the audience. You have to remember that you weren't always an expert in what you're an expert in now. And obviously, the people you're talking to, the non technical audience, they're not experts in what you're talking about now. So it's really important to have some empathy when preparing your presentation and know that there's this knowledge gap between you and the people you're talking to. So you need to prepare your presentation in such a way that people will understand. People like you back when you didn't know what you know now will understand. Because we just forget the fact that you weren't always a PhD in physics or a PhD in electrical engineering. You were a newbie at one point. And there's a lot that you didn't know then that you know now. But so harken back to the time when you didn't know and prepare your presentations in that way because you will be presenting to people like you back then, people who don't know. So always keep that in mind. Number two is not using stories in technical presentations, especially when you're talking to a non-technical audience. The use of stories is a great way to engage people. I mean, when I used to give presentations in front of management, and these were project status updates, I wouldn't just stick to, I need more money, I need more, I need more time, I need more, fill in the blank. I'd always pepper in some stories in there just to keep their interest. I mean, back then, this was a number of years ago now, the presentations I had to give, it wasn't just me giving them, it was other people too. And it's a full day affair. This is meeting after meeting after meeting, or presentation after presentation after presentation that these C-level people had to sit through. So if you were able to just keep them engaged by using stories to just perk them up from presentation to presentation, they'd greatly appreciate it. So definitely try to do that whenever possible. The third one is using technical jargon. A lot of us are accustomed to using these words amongst our peers, but remember, you're talking to a non-technical audience who may not know what these words mean. I'm a big fan of using more commonly used words and even using analogies to help bridge that gap, that knowledge gap between yourself and the non-technical audiences that you're talking to. So try to minimize that technical jargon, or at least if you're going to use it, explain what it means. The fourth one is having too much data on a slide. And this can come in the form of too many charts or graphs or tables. It could also come from having too much text on a slide. Remember, you're talking to an audience who doesn't know as much about the subject as you do. So you don't want to overload them with a whole lot of information on a slide. They may very well just tune you out because it's too much. So I'm a big fan of minimizing the amount of text you have on a slide and speaking to what you really want to convey to the audience. Ultimately, it's public speaking, not public reading after all. And then I'm also a fan of minimizing the amount of charts and graphs and tables you have on a slide too. So the non-technical audience can focus on one at a time. If you have a whole bunch of them on a slide, they may not know which one to focus on at any given time. And you don't want that. You want to make it as easy as possible for them to understand. That actually leads to my fifth point, which is ultimately when it comes to these type of presentations, you want to alleviate the burden on the non-technical audience in understanding your presentation. You want them to not be so much friction in them understanding your presentation. You want them to be able to understand it as easily as possible. And that's the reason why you put a lot of thought into putting your presentation together and you have empathy towards the audience. It's the reason why you put in stories. It's the reason why you minimize the technical jargon. It's the reason why you minimize the amount of data per slide. Because ultimately, what you want to do is minimize the amount of friction there is between them actually being there and listening to your presentation and understanding your presentation. Because you don't want it to be at the end of your presentation, you're getting a lot of questions that you thought you had answered during your presentation, but because you didn't put things in a way that these non-technical people could understand, now you're getting all these questions. If you just put some more thought into it, you would have fared a lot better. So let's just recap on those tips that I offer the mistakes that technical people make when communicating with non-technical people. Number one, you want to show empathy. Remember, you weren't always an expert. Number two, you want to use stories. People very much gravitate towards stories. Number three, you want to minimize technical jargon. They won't understand. And if they don't understand, they likely won't listen. Number four, you want to make sure there's not too much data on a slide. And that's in regards to text and also to charts and data, charts and graphs and tables. And then number five, and this basically sums everything else up, you want to minimize the amount of friction there is to understanding your presentation. Hopefully that's been helpful. Again, my name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. I work with technical professionals so they present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. And if you want to know more about that, you can go to teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. And as always, remember to like and subscribe to this YouTube channel, because every bit helps. Until next time, take care.